kinds of things, and where do you draw the line? I think that's quite ridiculous. Yeah. So as I said, sometimes the reputation of this book is greater than its, the reputation of this book as being risque or controversial is greater than if you actually read it. So if you actually read the trilogy particularly, as I said before, it's quite conservative. I can't see a good reason why this should be censored.
Well, speaking of being shades of grey, there's another question that's been raised by our readers, and that is, now is it right, that we have to describe female and male desires, especially sexual desires, in institutions and also in academia as well as the arts, and if it's right, how can we make it right? Because policymakers are also asking, is it right to implement such policy, because it can lead to certain undesired issues, like the youth may try to experiment what they learn, for instance. So I'd like to pose this question to Dr. Carriel first. What do you think? Do you think is it right to express, because you said that we need to express and also to describe the female and the male desires to students and the public at large?
Well, we need to educate students to be able to make their own decisions. At least at the college level, these are young adults, so they're not children anymore, but there is still a developmental phase that they're going through. We're all always learning, hopefully, I would hope. That's why it's so important to have a conversation about this, because I find this book very disturbing. And I agree with assuming that the morality is their relationship is ultimately very conservative. They end up with a nice little nuclear family tied up with a pink bow. But the issues of consent, her misreading of literature, her processing of their relationship through a radical misreading of a rape scenario in Tess of the D'Urbervilles, I think we need to have that conversation, because frankly it scares me that people who are Anastasia's age are reading this thinking, oh, he's so romantic, Christian is just the sort of man I would be looking for. That's very disturbing.
Yes, I think that's much, much more disturbing than the sexual aspects of the book. Look, the BDSM, if you want to experiment, as long as it's between two rational consenting adults and it's carried out in safety, that's none of my business. That's a private sphere thing. But the figuring of Christian Grey as a romantic hero when this guy is very close to being a stalker psychopath, I think that is disturbing, and it really needs to be discussed. It really needs further discussion, because we need to understand why women find this attractive. There is a huge difference, I do understand, between fantasy and reality, but I suppose for impressionable, younger women or whatever, who might think that a billionaire hero who's quite controlling and who courts in the way that he does, with gifts, with control issues and all of that, might somehow be romantic. That's something that needs to be discussed further.
Now, speaking about discussion, do you think that Asian societies like Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, Thailand, Hong Kong, and so forth, the list goes on in Asia, are they prepared? Are they ready to able to understand and mature enough to undertake such literacy art form like 50 Shades of Grey? Are they prepared to do that? Are they prepared to understand and learn? I'll just start with Dr. Curry. What do you think? You're the professor in Singapore, so...
Well, I feel a little bit like it's inappropriate for me to be answering that question, but I'll just say that in general, there's no race that's smarter or more mature than another, so absolutely, Asian societies, there's no problem with them encountering this. My students are very intelligent, they're very sophisticated, I'm sure Sunings are too. I don't think they'll have any problem processing.
Because Kishore Bababani has written a book called Can Asians Think? So, that's why he posed the question: are Asians prepared and are they ready to think for themselves? So I'd like to ask that question to Dr. Su
I think
Lin.
we can't generalize, but I'd be very surprised. I guess I am surprised, coming from Australia. I'm surprised at why this is an issue. When I think about the history of all the various cultures, within the Asian region, historically they have been far, far more advanced in terms of erotica than the West has been. You have a lot of erotica and then erotic manuals coming out of Asia long before this is being written about in the West. So where's that memory gone? Where's that history gone? This should not be regarded as something new. Yeah.
Interesting. And speaking about not that the trend itself not being old-fashioned, because 50 Shades of Grey has been around for quite a while, and even before that. I'd like to ask this question, and that is, Dr. Cargill, if you were an author of this book, what would be the one thing that you would change?
I would not have written this book. That's the thing. I would. I like some of what she does in this book,
Yeah.
but I would not have written this book.
Why?
It's, to be perfectly honest, because I like literature and I think she uses it, but not in a way that I think is fair to literature or to readers.
And so what is not fair about the subject matter of 50 Shades of Grey?
It's not fair because Anastasia structures her understanding of herself, her relationship, and her desire with literature, which she gets wrong. She mischaracterizes characters in classical works of literature. And I know that I sound like a lit geek here, but these things are important because somebody who's Anastasia's age, who doesn't have any sexual experience, probably does exactly the same thing. Reads herself into Bella Swan's character in Twilight, or into Anastasia's character, or into Elizabeth Bennet's character, or into Jane Eyre, or into Tess of the D'Urbervilles. And if you mischaracterize it as badly as Tess of the D'Urbervilles is in 50 Shades of Grey, a young woman is going to walk away from that going, oh, okay, maybe it's okay if he, kind of forces himself on me. I was kind of confused. I didn't really know what was going on, but, he's really cute and he wants me and he's really wealthy. I guess that's okay, because she hasn't had that chance to process things in a way that is, I hate this word empowering, but in a way that lets her talk about her experience, her desire. It's okay to say that you're uncomfortable with something. It's okay to say, he pushed me farther than I wanted to go. It's okay to be honest when you don't like something or don't want something and it happens anyway. So I don't like 50 Shades of Grey for the reason that it presents succumbing to a man in an inaccurate way. In Tess of the D'Urbervilles, she succumbs to a wealthy hot guy because her family is starving and this is the only way that she can protect them. Anastasia succumbs in 50 Shades of Grey because she's horny and she wants to have sex with this sex god. So those are not the same things. That's not the same kind of succumbing. The power dynamics are totally different. So I actually get angry that how literature is used in this book.
Did you feel the same way, Dr. Su Lin?
No, because
you're not angry.
At that, no, I don't think so.
In between.
No, I couldn't get passionate enough about it one way or the other. I found it intellectually interesting, in terms of where it sits, I guess, the way it makes a transition from pornography or erotica to romance, and the way in which, erotica could not be sustained beyond the first book, and she had to then fall back into romance. I found it interesting in the way that, that she thought she was doing something new. In relation to your question, I guess, I can't imagine writing 50 Shades of Grey. Obviously, I didn't. I mean, I'm a novelist as well. I don't want to say what I would have done differently because, I think I want to give her the respect.
Oh.
She wrote this book. It's been very, very successful. So, that's fantastic for her. Obviously, I have written about sex in my novels, Love and Vertigo and Behind the Moon. It was very, very different because it was more, I wasn't writing about, it was fiction, but it wasn't about romantic fantasies, about sexual fantasies and all of that. It was more about actual power relations between men and women. So I cannot imagine writing that book. But since she did, and she did really well, good luck to her.
No, Dr. Cargill, tell me, what is a woman then? Tell me, I know that you disagreed with the way she describes the way a woman is and the way a woman succumb to a man. But what is a woman in your definition?
Well, I don't know that, I actually don't want to answer that question because women have been dealt with as a monolith of, woman with a capital W. And that's done us a great deal of harm because we're individuals. Yes, there are certain characteristics that most women have in common, but there are radical differences between women as well. And if we start talking about what are women like, or talk about woman in this sort of monolithic way.
But in the definition of the culture of a woman, that is, because I mean.
But there isn't one culture, as I said. From when I read 50 Writers on 50 Shades of Grey, I realized that there were a lot of other women's points of views that I did not encompass, I did not understand to begin with. When I read that, the black writer writing about 50 Shades of Grey, I realized that there's a whole other culture, a whole other world of black women, which is very, very separate from mine. I don't think that this is a question which can really be answered. I think we can probably tell you what is disturbing about how women are portrayed, but we cannot tell you, we cannot really answer the question, what is woman, or what is woman's desire ultimately.
Amazing. Now, before we end, that is, now that we have the answers almost close to what we're looking for, and that is 50,
after I've told you that I can't answer the question.
50 Shades of Grey, folks, right now we have almost struck a balance that, that both men and women can discover more about themselves, not just in their writings, but also, in the way they express in their daily lives. And culturally speaking, both men and women do share equal opportunities in the way they want to give of their soul to all societies about what's going on around them. Before we really end, and that is Dr. Cargill and Dr. Suman, I would like to first thank you for being here with us for our show. But I would like to ask you just to share probably 3 key points from each of you. What would you have done if you are the policymaker and an author, and as well as an academician, for the women of today?
In relation to 50 Shades of Grey, or just for
Yes.
women?
Yeah.
I think we need to not censor it. We need to discuss it in our classes, and we need to have more of those splendid panels on the Singapore Writers Festival that Sumin was a part of. And because this book has been talked about at the Singapore Writers Festival, the Ubud Writers Festival, I'm sure other writers' festivals, and we need more of those conversations. We need to talk about this book and about our feelings and about why it's so popular.
I would agree with that as well, about not censoring, about further discussion. And I think, I hope very much that this book will just lead us to read more literature of all sorts, whether it is about erotica, whether it is about literature, but just to keep reading.
Now, and also one more thing, and that is, what are the missing issues that has not been discussed over at the Singapore Writers Festival and other festivals that you see? Is there any issue that has not been discussed?
Gosh, I don't think I can answer that. I don't know what has been covered, so I might say something that was,
No, it's okay. It's actually a trick question. Once again, Once again, thank you for paying attention to our show, and thank you for joining us here at the National Critics' Choice, the Steinberg Review. And please do read the book, 50 Shades of Grey, one more time if you can. And for myself, to E.L. James, thank you for the book, and we hope to see you soon here in Singapore or elsewhere. Once again, Robin Stienberg, thank you for joining me, and have a good week ahead. Thank you. So,
Was that okay?
I don't know. I felt that